Welcome back to the show, people. Hope you're all well. Hope you had a fantastic Christmas and Boxing Day. We're moving towards the new year, which means that football is back. And I'm joined by Dave. I'm joined by Joe. I'm joined by Emilio. And there's no Ash tonight. So Neil has kindly offered to jump on and talk all things Leicester. The boys, I hope you had a good Christmas. Before we do start, to all of you listening, if you have not watched it, go and check out last night's show. It's well worth a watch. Dan Lawless got absolutely destroyed, and it's always funny when that happens. So please make sure you go and do that. And if you could do me a favor and smash a like and subscribe, it would be amazing. Guys, listen, happy Christmas. Football is back. Some will be happy about that. Some of you won't be. I'm going to start with Emilio if I can, because Fulham did something amazing. Mitrovic, all of a sudden, miracle. He's in the sides. He's playing. Everybody on this channel dumped him out of their fantasy football side. Thanks so much, Emilio, for the 15 points that some of us didn't get. But listen, I'm okay because I had Callum Wilson in my team and he was sick, like weirdly. So Mitrovic comes back into my fantasy football team anyway. But Joe is devastated because he dumped him out. So is a few others. So Emilio, we're going to just take all your ITK and then forget anything about it from now on. Do you know what I mean? Anytime I ask you who's in the team, Emilio, who are you linked with, I'm going to say, right, oh, listen, fingers in ears, Joe. Do you know what I mean? Emilio, in all seriousness, it was a player that you really need. We all know you need this season, and he proved again why you need him. He's such a talent. And I know that Palace didn't do himself any favours, but he destroyed them, mate. Absolutely destroyed them, Emilio.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Christmas, guys. Yeah, it's good to be on the show tonight. I don't know where D is. Has D gone a bit AWOL as always?
Apparently, he can't make it again tonight.
He never, Emilio, he never appeared to me for me before the World Cup, so maybe it's a theme developing.
Yeah, it's a thing. Yeah, you know, when they win, guaranteed when they next win a game, he'll be on the show boasting, about this and the other. But yeah, first and foremost, obviously disappointed to hear the news about Pele a couple of hours ago. So yeah, let's not forget, football's football, but at the end of the day, we've lost a great player of the world football. All I can remember is watching him in that World Cup 1970 final highlights. We keep watching time and time again. Playing against Italy, absolutely destroyed Italy in that final. But that, him against Messi, there's always this debate who would be the greatest player, Maradona. But from what I've seen on YouTube and all these clips, he was an outstanding player and a good professional. I remember him coming to Fulham a couple of times. Mohamed Al Fayed, even his more recent times, paid him to be a scout at Fulham. Trying to get some youth squads about 18, 19 years ago, beginning when Fayed first took over at Fulham. So look. Great player. A lot of people saw him live. I'm obviously not old enough to remember him playing on the pitch, but seeing all those highlights, Dave, it's great.
Well, Emilio, I was 6 at the time of the 1970 World Cup.
All right,
and I was just getting into football because my dad used to take me to matches in our area, and those grainy pictures from Mexico. And to me, the greatest World Cup match ever played was the Brazil 1, England 0 game in the group stage, where England actually dominated Brazil and should have won, really. But everything that Pele, Jairzinho, Gerson, Tostão, Rivellino, Clodoaldo, Piazza, Brito, you name them, did, just basically made me fall in love with football. And I wouldn't be talking to you lovely lads tonight if it wasn't for that. To me, that's the greatest team I've ever seen. Holland in 74 were the coolest because they were like rock stars, but Brazil 1970, I'm privileged to say, as a little lad, I was able to watch them,
Yeah, and I remember some of the other Brazilian teams as well. I remember the 82 ones, when we beat them 3-2 in that cracking game. And that Brazilian team were by far the best team in the world then. And we beat them on that knockout game 3-2. And that, for me, was the best ever game I've witnessed on live on TV. But, I remember, Gordon Banks save from Pele as well with a header. I remember 70, that's 74, wasn't it? I think it was 74.
No, 70.
Oh, that's 70 as well. So, yeah. So, overall, look, great legend passes away, but let's not forget what he brought to football. And like you said, Dave, he's introduced you to football. And, you've not looked back since then. Rest in peace, Mr. Pele. But glad he got to see the final. I think he sort of hung around just to watch the final. And although his country didn't win, I'm sure he'd be proud of what Messi achieved in this tournament. Yeah. Anyway, going back to Mitrovic. So you're as surprised as when I saw that lineup on Monday. I think, what the hell is he on the pitch for? Because literally through inside information, cut long story short, He hadn't trained with the club in the lead up to Christmas. Wasn't going to start against Palace, and was unlikely to start against Southampton this weekend. So I was surprised more than anybody else that he actually played the game, albeit you can see he wasn't fully fit. But just having him on the pitch already accounts for more than what some of his backups would provide. It's just his influence, his strength, his pace. Don't say his pace, just his physique and all that. And the bullying, he did that against Palace to good effect in that first half. And to be honest, we're already good value for that 1-0 lead when it was 11 against 11, and then they lost. Palace lost their bottle, they lost their discipline, and we destroyed them in the end. And it could have been a lot more, but like I said, Mitrovic wasn't 100% fit. He's still playing with an injection. I thought the team looked very competent, defensively looked sound, and Palace at home were awful. But I'm not going to take everyone saying, Palace were poor. And I thought we made them look poor. We played with high intensity right from the go. And you look at those stats, 11 against 11, we actually annihilated them. Took a deserved 1-0 lead. Should have been more, and Palace were nowhere to be seen. And maybe they've still got a Christmas hangover, but nonetheless, you take the 3 points, a clean sheet, a good overall performance, and we move on to Southampton on at the weekend. But overall, great to see the big man back. I know he's not fully fit, so my only nervousness is, have we started a little bit too early? Hopefully he's not picked up a knock from that game, but he looked undeterred, to be honest. He was up for it right throughout the game. A couple of decisions didn't go his way because it was Mitrovic. I thought there was a couple of moments when he should have got fouled, even a penalty in one moment, but because of who he is, slight reputation, decisions don't always go his way. But overall, great win, 3 points on the board, and made me feel a little bit calm because that gap at the bottom is sort of getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And we needed to get that win just to push on from the pre-World Cup. So 22 points, we're looking reasonably good, but it's not over till it's over. So we've got to get something out of Southampton the weekend, and from that, then we've got Leicester away. I think, Neil, we've got you guys next week. That's going to be a tricky game, and then we've got likes of Chelsea, Tottenham, some big games in January. So important we don't lose the next 6 pointers against the team around us, and then start getting a couple more signings in January, and I think I'll start to breathe easily again. But if we'd lost against Palace, you get drawn back in. That bottom 10 gets tighter and tighter and tighter. We're sort of slightly away from that, which is a much needed victory. So D, if you're listening, commiseration, but you were poor, and we made you look very poor on Monday. So it's much needed 3 points.
Listen, I'll make sure D's listening and he'll be with us next time. Trust me. Listen, Joe, I want to ask you, man, from a Leeds perspective, do you think with Fulham that with January around the corner, this could be sustainable with 1 or 2 signings? Because they're looking quite good this season, man. They've been a surprise package for me.
Yeah, definitely for me as well. I understand why Emilio has reservations, but for me, they're already sound, man. I've seen enough from Fulham this season to say they're not going to get dragged into it. Mitrovic looks like a totally different player in the Premier League this time around. I really rate him. I think Marco Silva's done a great job. And obviously, if January, it's all about January, of course. I know that myself, as a Leeds fan. But yeah, looking at the table now, just off to my right, I wouldn't even put you in that bracket. I think you're sweet. I think before the season started, I maybe said, all of the newly promoted sides might be in trouble, but it hasn't proved to be the case. I still think Bournemouth might get dragged in, but I think Fulham are sweet. And I've been impressed. And I know his reputation precedes him, but what I'd give for a Mitrovic in my side right now, I'll tell you that much. I think he's quality.
Yeah, man, he's been superb. I remember when he was at Newcastle, it didn't quite work out. And then obviously, since he's been at Fulham, it was all about what he does in the Championship. This year, he's absolutely dropped all those doubts. He's been superb, man. He really has. He's been top quality. Neil, let me ask you, man, from a Leicester point of view, when it comes to Fulham, do you look at them this season and think that should be we're used to Leicester being up there? Do you know what I'm saying? They're in the Leicester kind of position at the moment for me. Do you think that Fulham is kind of sustainable, or do you think that they could drop off and get themselves into the relegation fight again?
I mean, if it was about September, October time, I said maybe, but over half a season now, we're not half a season, third of the way through the season, there's enough that they're getting the bits right, and you're seeing that they're not just relying on individual brilliance. even though Mitrovic has been great, I think the whole team in general has just combined a lot better than when it was when they got relegated last time. It seems to be a lot more cohesive, a lot more of a team. And I think from the outside, again, media can correct me if I'm wrong, it just seems like they're enjoying playing football. And that you see that and you go, right, that's the kind of team they're not worried about staying up. We're just going to enjoy being this team that performing well. Yes, we're not winning every single week, and we're working together. And that there's at least 5 worse sides in the Premier League than yourself, and that's enough to stay up. In the January, I don't think it's too much to worry about for Fulham. The main thing is just keeping your players fit, and if you're going to prioritize staying in the Premier League, I think you'll be more than fine. I wouldn't worry about you going. I was sort of having a look at the Premier League table. Obviously, you're in 9th, and if you're kind of worried, 2 points above you is Chelsea, and then Chelsea and Brighton. They're not going to get dragged into a relegation battle, so I think you should be fine.
Yeah, no,
Tim Ream was
right.
right.
You're right there, Neil, in terms of the team spirit, the togetherness. And Marco Silva's introduced that last season. He's developed players. Mitrovic confidence was rock bottom a couple of years ago. In comes Silva, gave him a new lease of life, and he's rejuvenated the last 18 months. We knew what he can do in the Championship. Scott Parker destroyed his confidence completely, and we're playing a brand of football that's attractive. Like you said, we're scoring a lot of goals throughout the pitch. We're not relying just on the big man himself. We're still susceptible to conceding goals, but we're always relying on scoring more than you concede. And in some games that doesn't work when you're you have to be scoring 3 to win a game. But there'll be time when we have got clean sheets. We've looked competent at the back. Tim Ream, goodness me, 34, 35 years of age. We've given him another year's extension. The man's a legend. He was competent in the World Cup against England. I thought he looked very assured against Harry Kane that England attack. So this man's going with confidence. That's all because of Marco Silva. Pereira. Great. Bargain, 8 million. I was
Palhinha.
When we signed, for 8 million worth a punt. And to be honest, he was selfish at the time of the beginning of the season, but he's now becoming a little bit more of a team player, which is what he lacked at Man United. And his distribution from set pieces is very dangerous. He gets involved. He's starting to score goals. And that's what exactly we need. You need that togetherness. You don't want him, Pereira, to be the Man United, I'm bigger than the club player. You want a player who's as big as Fulham and playing as a squad, as a team. And give him his dues. He's starting to play well. And same with Willian. I've said it on this show before. I wasn't a big fan when we signed Willian, but his skill, his trickery, and it's just his presence. Again, it's causing defenses a lot of problems, and he's growing better and stronger and fitter week on week. So again, I'm great to have him on for a season. No obligation. If he does well, if he doesn't go well, we'll let him go. But so far, he's getting better game by game. So you're right, Neil. We shouldn't be worried, but me being Fulham fan, how many times we've been relegated. I won't breathe until we hit 38 points. To be honest with you.
Nah, listen, I get that. I understand that doubt because it's Fulham who have not been a side that have been Premier League for for the 5-6 years of the last 5-6 seasons. But I do kind of see where Joe's coming from. I think he'll be fine, Emilio. I really do. I don't see anything in that Fulham side at the moment that looks horrendously weak. I think it looks fairly balanced, if I'm honest with you. I think Tim Ream deserves a mention. I think it's well worth mentioning him. He was a weak link for me when I last sort of saw Fulham, and he's been great this time around. Mitrovic, we've mentioned. I think Palhinha, I think this definitely deserves a mention, as you've said.
I think
top draw.
Outstanding, top draw, Pereira. So good players there, man.
Even Leno, who Dan very well, again, he's looked like he's turned a corner where I wasn't sure what was going to happen. So it can just be that change of environment. And I've seen from other players that have joined my club, but they just get that pressure taken off them. And then they're like, right, we can actually go enjoy playing football compared to if you're in the top 6 side where there's so much pressure on you, where Harry Maguire is a great example. Great for us. And then he went to Man United, he's kind of bottled it. And some players aren't designed to live up to that top level mentality. And that works in the favor of a smaller team where we go, look, come to us. The limelight's going to be on you. Just go and enjoy football. And again, players you mentioned, Willian's a great example. And Leno being another one as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, 100. Absolutely. Emilio, just lastly, do you think that Fulham could not get too cocky, but do you think Fulham could go for a cup run this year?
I want that cup run, to be honest with you. I know it's the old saying goes, Premier League survival is more important, but there's no harm. We've got Hull City away, I think we've got. So knowing Fulham will end up losing that game. So it's But let's give it the first couple. Let's play the Premier League games in January and coexist with the cup. Beat Hull City, go on to the next round, and if we get a decent draw, then why not? I think we've got enough depth there to be able to give some of the other fringe players, Wilson, Dan James, you mentioned, these aren't mugs on the pitch. These are competent players, so we should be able to use some of our sort of fringe players. But I'd like a cup run, but not the expense of Premier League survival. But if we get more points on the board in the next couple of games, then maybe we can take a bit of a risk and say nothing to lose. Play some of these fringe players, get them fit. We need depth in the squad. Buy a few more players in January. I think then we might be okay. But I'd like a cup run, but not at the expense of survival, to be honest.
I always find it bizarre because for me, and this isn't supposed to come across as arrogant or cocky, we've never really looked to just go for a league or just go for one thing. We've always tried to kind of go for them all, really, and that's why I think we've been great in the FA Cup. I mean, that's why we won it 14 times, because we used to always go for it. And I think that we've always been blessed with the squad depth for sure, more than others. But I find it strange that it's always been with, and this goes for all of the other clubs that I see, really, that no, we just want to stay up, leave that cup. I think most of those teams should have enough to at least play another couple of extra games towards the start anyway. Make sure that they can try and at least get towards a quarters or a semis by playing your strongest side. Now, it might be that you do that and it goes wrong, and maybe that is the case. Maybe people have tried that and gone, we went for the FA Cup and got relegated. I don't know. I don't know any teams that have done that, but I always find that a bit strange personally. So maybe Fulham, it's time for them to look at their strength and depth in January and go, do you know what? We should be safe. Let's see if we can have a nice little cup run and a trip to Wembley. That's the way I would see it.
Well, Wigan won it, didn't they? Wigan won it and then got relegated.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So that's my flash score going off there. I've got a bet on and I keep hearing.
I was going to say, what is that background noise? It's huge.
Sounds like you're at a train station. And just
I'm waiting for a Millwall goal for some money, so I'll turn it.
So am I, man.
It's like my creaky chair.
Yeah,
I've actually managed to. Wow. Sorry about my creaky chair in the past, lads. Honestly, I thought it was my backside, but I think it's the chair. I don't know.
You can blame it on the chair. It's fine.
Yeah, well, I normally blame my backside, Neil, but let's not go there, mate.
I literally need a Millwall goal as well, Joe. So I'm with you. If they score, let me know. Let's talk Leicester because Neil, let's be honest. Brendan Rodgers, it was Brendan Rodgers out. Then it was actually they picked it up for the World Cup, and then obviously since then, things have come back. And Leicester, if I'm honest, if you got a little bit destroyed against Newcastle,
a little bit.
Yeah. Let me know your thoughts, actually, seeing as we've got you on the channel now. Where are you with the football club and with Brendan?
It's such a strange position that we're in because we've been... So from my perspective, I wanted him gone for about... Since Dave's gone to Nottingham Forest 4-0 in the Cup, we got absolutely embarrassed away at their ground. That was supposed to be... They loved it, and rightfully so. There's so many things behind the scenes that he's got wrong, transfers being one of them, and what it is, it's not that he's a bad manager. He's just come to the end of his reign. He's come to an end of a period where it's not going to get any better. The 8th place he got last season papered over the cracks because I think a couple of matches before we were 14th. We were really bad. There's a couple of other players I'm really frustrated with the manager because the run that we went on when we started was embarrassing. But I can't blame it all on the manager. But he was a big part of the reason why our mentality was in the mud. Partly it was the players, but partly it's the manager that instills it in them. Against Newcastle, we were just woeful. But it was more on the players. But I've wanted Rodgers gone for a while. Not because I don't think he's a good manager, just because he's messed up quite a lot of things within. Everybody remembers what happened at Liverpool in terms of transfers and things like that. The thing is, mate, people have been saying this as a market. People have been saying this for years. When we lost Kante, when we lost Mahrez, when we lost all these kind of players, our recruitment is decent. We can replace these players. Where's Fofana went? We bought him well fast, and it looks like we've not lost any players, which is unbelievable considering we sold Fofana for 70 and we've got 15 million for Fast. We know what we're doing in terms of recruitment. But coming on that point, our recruitment system is good, but Rodgers keeps overriding it. He bought in Ozzy Perez for £30 million. Again, Newcastle fans, to this day, are laughing at us considering they paid 35 of recent for Jumaresh. He overruled the scouting system there. He also looked at like Vestergaard again. That went horribly wrong as well. Ryan Bertrand again. There's players that he's gone over the scouting system, and a few players have left because of that. People behind the scenes. Coming into this season, the first 8 games we were rock, but we had 1 point in 8 or 9 games. And we were getting demolished by. I think I met you, Dan, at the Arsenal ground before the game, and I wasn't too disappointed because Arsenal were really good, but the mentality stunk in that game where we would score a goal, Arsenal would come back within 60 seconds of score, and as a professional footballer, a sport, you're going, that's pathetic. Even if it is a great Arsenal side, Dan can admit they didn't really have to play that amazing brand of football to beat us, considering we're going 1-0. Me thinking, right, the mental's with us now. Let's go for the second one. No, we just capitulate. Partly that is on the players and partly it's on the manager. So in terms of Brendan, there's a lot of pressure around him. For me, I've wanted him to go for a while. But also, if we would have got rid of him, we should have done it by now. We were bottom against Forest. I think we were below Forest. I think they were on 4 points. We were on 1. And that was game 10. Can't remember now. The World Cup's kind of messed it, like the number of games up now. But we were terrible, and we should have got rid of him then. From what I heard, we were 1 loss away from. If we lost to Forest, he would have gone, and the next person was come in was Thomas Frank. That's what we were literally hoping on, and we ended up winning that game. It saved his job, and then we ended up getting on from there.
Sorry, Neil.
Yeah, I know. But
bloody Forest, mate?
Yeah.
Neil, I wanted to ask you this one because, like Dan from last night's shows on, big up Dan. Make sure you go and follow Footballism. This is what I want. It says, Neil, where are the finances? It's a good question because they had a shocking summer, Leicester. Shocking.
Our finance, FFP, again, one of the reasons I'll bring it back, we spent a lot of money on players that we needed to get rid of players before we brought in our own. Our finances are okay. They're not great. We are a smaller club. We can't compete on the same level. We shop in different markets for players than other teams do. And we'll end up, we're a mid team where we'll get a player that nobody's heard of. We'll train them. They'll make the name for themselves and they'll move on to that next level. So probably Tillemans, Maddison might be somebody. He's 50-50 on a contract at the moment. Mahrez being another one, Kante being another one. We take these players that are unknown and we make them. That's our finance model. That's how we keep ourselves sustainable. The long story is our owners are owned by a duty-free company. Obviously, that took a massive hit with the pandemic and things. It's still not really recovered. Finances are okay, but the problem is we've got too many players. I think we've all been there with all of our clubs at one point. We've got too many players that nobody wants to. Everybody goes, I'm on a good wage here. I don't want to move on. We're like, can you please leave the club? We need some new players in. But they're just kind of holding these positions because they know they won't get any money anywhere else. That's the real issue. I think coming into the summer, we're going to have 7 or 8 players are out of contract, including likes of Wilfred Ndidi, who's, again, I can go into a separate conversation on him. Yuri Tillemans. We're looking at Mendy. I've got my list here, actually. Johnny Evans. Another player just can't get fit. So Yunchu's out of contract. Daniel Amarty's out of contract. Uzi Perez out of contract. So there's going to be quite a few players. So it's a really pivotal window to get it right. However, the reason why we didn't sign anybody was because we had enough. We were full. We needed to get rid of the squad for it to invest. So hopefully in the summer, we'll have that. So finances are tight, but not because we're completely broke, which is what the narrative was. We've now got Fofana money as well. So we have got the money available, but it's not as easy as just... We can't do what Man United, we can't do what Arsenal do. As a smaller club, we can't go and splash the money. We've got to be very specific and very careful with our finances.
Fair play. I just wanted to ask you quickly before I come to Dave about it, his thoughts on it. Neil, Tielemans, Maddison, you mentioned names like that. I keep hearing rumours that Arsenal want Tielemans. They're going to go in with 25 million, and that's pretty much what Leicester are after now. But I just don't really understand why you'd sell either of those at the moment. I really don't get why you would do that. Now, it might be that Tielemans, from what I hear, because Ash and a few of the other lads were saying that he's been awful. He's lost his head, don't really want to be there, and I think his head's in the clouds. I don't know if that's fair because I don't watch Leicester enough. But is there... What would you do? Would you keep Tielemans and Maddison as long as you can, or if they're unhappy, you're gonna have to let them go, try and replace him?
Both of them are happy at the club. The issue is not with attitude, especially with Tielemans. He's been really good from us leading from the front, and also he shows a lot of leadership qualities. I was really surprised that you guys didn't come in for him, and that since Tielemans has joined, not a single club has put a bid in for him. And the thing is, Dan, it's been a running us and you guys. It was Kante, then it was Mahrez, then it was Vardy, then it was then Tielemans and Maddison. It's a narrative that I can tell. We'll put a bid in or be quiet, and that's my mentality of like, if you're going to put the money up front, don't say we're interested in it. Put the money up front or piss off, because it gives us enough time to go find a replacement if we are. I'd hate to lose him, Maddison or Tielemans. However, we're more likely to lose Tielemans. But so it's one of the things where there was a lot of hype, but there was nobody from the Leicester journalist side that was saying that Tielemans they've put a bid in, and there was a lot of people from the Arsenal side who were saying that, and Romano jumped on it, and then he backtracked in 48 hours, which was strange. They've a lot of things, a lot of interesting developments about midfielder. Then Vieira came out. And then you would have thought spending 40 million on Vieira, 25 on Tielemans, and nobody fancies him. He's a bargain, in my opinion. 25 is a hell of a player for 25. I don't know why, unless he's not on a massive amount of wage. I don't know why nobody's come in for him personally, but nobody has.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Dave, what would you do as a Leicester sort of? If you were Leicester, would you want to stick with Brendan? Would you be able to see him move on? Like, what do you think with Leicester?
I think it's amused me, not as a Forest fan mocking Leicester City in any way, shape or form, but I actually have dealings with 2 or 3 Leicester YouTube channels, Forest, Leicester Till I Die and the Final Whistle and all that. Mm-hmm. And there was this kind of standing joke at the start of the season as Leicester were like running through treacle about Brendan and about Danny Ward in particular. And then I kind of thought, Leicester City, I may have a solution to your issues. It's called Nottingham Forest. And from that game, the Forest game, where, although let me just say, Neil, and you were probably in the stadium that night at the King Power, where Leicester were clearly the better side and deserved the win. But Taiwo Awoniyi hit the post before Leicester City scored. Now Taiwo Awoniyi scores, and it miraculously goes Leicester City 0, Nottingham Forest 1. I suggest you get an enormous attitude shift inside the King Power, and Nottingham Forest may have developed some belief. As it was, it hit the post, came back, then Leicester ran away with it. And it's almost like from then on, I've been going on these shows and say, well, you lads wanted Rodgers removed pronto down the line, and now you're all, all I would say about Leicester City is what Leicester City have done in the last few years is frankly astonishing. I said on this show a while back, and I've said on Leicester City shows, when Leicester City won the league, 2016, I think it was, I'm a Nottingham Forest fan. I adore and love my club deeply. But when Leicester City won the league, I think it's one of the greatest football stories in history. And I was so pleased. I remember the night that Chelsea and Tottenham drew 2-2, and Tottenham was stopped from catching Leicester. And I would have loved to have been in Vardy's house that night with everybody, waiting for Kasper Schmeichel to come when he put the kids to bed, right? So I think Leicester are probably football's great overachievers in the last few years. Now, with what's going on now, all I would say is I would caution about throwing babies and bathwater out in combination, because Leicester City were in great form. I just think they came up against the Newcastle United side, who are, in my view, the most improved football team in the whole country. The most improved fan base as well, because they've been so deluded for so long. And I think they've gone and got themselves, to my way of thinking, the best English manager in the world. And they're an excellent side. So that game for Leicester, I almost kind of think, judge Leicester over the next, if Leicester go on to whoever they play in the next few games, and forgive me, I don't know their fixture list, and then start to lose again, then revisit the Brendan situation. But for me, to throw Brendan out now, if you think about it, that run they went on after the Forest, okay, they lost at Bournemouth, but they did play some good football before slightly chucking it away. And then they had this tremendous run. At Everton, they were absolutely sublime, Leicester were. And the Wolves, you go to Wolves, you can see 21 shots, you have 5 and you win 4-0. And so I don't have any worries about Leicester City, as I don't have any worries about Fulham. They're good sides, they're not going to be challenging at the top with a very, elite level. But I have no worries about either. But Brendan, if I was a Leicester City supporter, I'd be sticking with Brendan until it became untenable. I don't think it's at the untenable stage now. So I would stick with Brendan.
What it was, and I think from the outside perspective, I would understand that. But there's lots of things that have happened behind the scenes that have obviously not worked in his favour. And with our recruitment, we've had journalists on that have said that they're always looking at different players in different positions, but also managers. Our ambition is where do we want to be, and we're in a really weird and privileged position. But for the majority of the time, Dave, you probably realise Leicester were the worst team in the Championship. Coventry were above us. You were above us. Derby was above us. We were rubbish.
That is bad, mate.
We were terrible. And of all our local rivals, we were and I've been there through the League One days, the Championship days, looking up to likes of Wolves and going, maybe we could get to Premier League. Nah, maybe we'll just stay safe in the Premier League this season. Our owners have took us up to another new level, and now we're seen as our ambitions are to try and compete with Europe season in, season out. That's the reason why there's so much investment in the training ground. And it sounds bizarre, but we've gone and we've won the Premier League, we've won an FA Cup. I'm not trying to get big-headed about it, but at the same time, that was a big thing. 2-0 down in, I think it was 8 minutes or something, was ridiculous. But just come back to that point. Newcastle were fantastic at that game, but we were equally as poor, and both of them can be accurate at the same time. So with Newcastle, they were phenomenal, and I was so impressed watching them for full 90 minutes. It was just really annoying that's against my team that were underperforming. Loose pass everywhere, sloppy performance, and Newcastle were fantastic. And there is part of that which is just we couldn't keep up with them. But I know the level that my team can compete at. And bearing in mind, 2 seasons ago, with a very similar squad, we were competing for Champions League positions. Now we've come down quite a distance, and our squad has got better in that time. We've got more strength and depth. We've got decent quality throughout the team, and we're somehow worse. So for me, that doesn't make any sense. Our attacking options are fine. It's just the defense, and that's always been an issue with Rodgers, where we leak goals for fun. I mean, I think we've finally crept back. We're -3 at the moment. I'm trying to think how many goals we've conceded. We've conceded, I think, 28 goals so far this season. So it's not great in terms of that. So in where we are at the moment, again, it's kind of a good position where, however you spin it, you can look at the good run and go, we're in a good place. You can look at the bad side and go, so every way you can justify. I understand the justification, but from what I've seen, and I think we're better getting him out of the club because we can get another manager in, and our recruitment is good in that sense. But we're not in the trouble that we were when we were playing Forest, for example. We're in a better place now.
I think in many ways, Neil, like we were, 40 odd years ago, there was a watershed moment in the history of our club that changed every perspective that followed thereafter. So for us, it was League Championship, 2 League Cups, 2 European Cups, right? And it's still European Cup, let alone this Champions League nonsense, right? And for you, it's 2016. So Leicester City supporters up to 2016 had a certain mindset and a certain ethos, and that was entirely changed. And then, like you say, league title, European Cup quarter-final, FA Cup. So now you're into a different sort of approach to where your club's status is. Like us, up to that point in 1977-78, we were just little Nottingham Forest in a run-down ground by a river, where it actually seemed at one point the City ground was actually going to drop into the river and sink to the bottom because it was that run down. And then all of a sudden, now, blimey, we're a big club. How do we handle it? And Leicester City are now kind of going, having won the league and then won the FA Cup, and then so it's a different mindset, as you say, like where before you were looking up at us, and we've been, we're now looking up at other people. So
I agree, and I think we've made the right steps in the right directions. After winning the league, we then finished 14th. After that, I think we finished 8th, 5th, 8th. We have stabilised ourselves. We're in a new training ground. There is the stadium expansion. I do like our owners because they've provided that longevity. We could have done a Blackburn, won the league, and bang, straight back down, and the issues happen there. They've stabilised our club whilst reinvesting in it, which has been a fantastic combination. So I think we'll be okay. And we're in a weird spot where it's a catch-22. Do you want to put yourself forward? They're still giving James Maddison a new contract without thinking, he's above our level. So they are going at Tillemans. They offered him a contract. He turned it down. we're in a weird position. With where do these players go on to the next level? Because they are capable. Tillemans and Maddison are capable of playing for Arsenal. But one, we're really awful to do business with. Go ask Man United. We ripped the hand off for 80 million from Maguire. Even Man City, 65 million for Morris. We set our price, you meet it or go away. But it seems like there's nobody putting in bids enough for our players, and so you can't sell them when nobody's putting any offers in for them.
Yeah,
I think Vestergaard was interested in Fulham, I think, this summer, wasn't he?
In the summer, yeah.
And then Vestergaard turned him down because he goes, "No, I'm earning more money at Leicester."
Well, this is the thing is, right? Like before I come to Leeds, like Emilio, what would you do if like I think it's a crazy thing with Brendan, because I do think he's a good manager. I've never thought he was elite. I always thought he was a good manager. But if you're going to get rid of him, you kind of just got to get rid of him now. You can't just keep him for long periods of time, especially with January around the corner. If you get somebody in now, let them have their players, it's going to take some time. And it might be that Leicester's season's kind of half ruined, whatever they do, if they keep Brendan or they get rid of him. What would you like to see happening if you're a Leicester fan, Emilio?
To be honest, I'm of the view that he's outstayed his welcome. He should have gone in the summer, but clearly, if he's on a good contract, he's not going to walk away from the club. And I thought they were going to get rid of him when you were bottom of the table and literally looking hopeless. But as Dave said, you picked up a bit of form. You started winning those key games. And to be honest, I think Leicester's season is pretty much written off this year. You're not going to get relegated. I think you've got enough quality there to stay up. I think to your point, there's at least 5-6 teams worse than you. So I wouldn't worry as a Leicester fan. To be honest, I wouldn't with your financial situation being slightly precarious. I know you've got a lot of transfers, signing, a lot of money coming in, but you're probably waiting for a new manager to come in, start to revolutionise your team, play a new brand of football. You don't need to get someone like Sean Dyche to rescue you. I don't think he's not the type of manager you want to be, playing for Leicester City. Ruin your brand of football, your philosophy, and so forth. Sean Dyche, let him stay where he is. I wouldn't want him anywhere near my club. If you're on a threat for relegation, you want someone to help you survive, then he could be a good option. But you're not going to go down. I think you've got enough talent there. You just need to start let the season pan out, let it fade away, survive, make a change in the summer, and start rebuilding in the summer, ready for your next generation of Leicester Football Club. That's what I would do. I wouldn't get rid of him now. I think it would be unsettling. That could be more destabilizing to the team if you suddenly make a change now, when I actually think you're okay. You're not going to go down. You've recovered. In that spell before the World Cup, and there's enough quality there to go through a bit of form, win a couple of games there, lose a couple of games there. You're not going to get into Europe. You're not going to get relegated mid-table. Make a change in the summer. That's my view anyway.
Yeah, I think my thing is not get him out right now, call for his head. My thing is I don't believe he's the right man to take us forward. That's what I probably should have said. That's what I've been saying for a while, where I don't like get him out of my club. It was like that when we were bottom of the table. Now it's like, right, you're doing some things right, you're doing some things wrong, but I don't believe you should be here in 2 years' time, in 1 year's time. No. But now I'll tolerate that position because a lot of the things the club have got right. He didn't want a set piece coach. The owners have gone, look, we're terrible at set pieces. Make sure you go in and a set piece coach is coming without Rodgers and sorting this out. His director of football, the head of recruitment has left. We've brought in we brought in Southampton's recently as well. So we're making the bits that I'm not happy with Brendan. The main things have been sorted out, but I think he's just one of those guys where the shelf life of him has just reached the end of its time. And depending on what the owners want to do next, I will back, because when I lost Ranieri, I was absolutely heartbroken. But they were ruthless at the time. They were like, right, we can't get relegated regardless of what happens. Get rid of it.
Who would you want? Do you want Sean Dyche, or would you rather go for someone a little bit more who would play a typical Leicester City brand of football? I'm not sure Sean Dyche would be the right fit for Leicester City, but what are your thoughts? You see them week in, week out.
I don't think that I think Sean Dyche has been overlooked. I think he's done decent with that. I wouldn't be completely against him. However, I don't think it's the right caliber of managers to get to where we want to go. We want to be going for the European places. And yes, they reached that with Sean Dyche. I don't think he's the right... At times, it was, when we were bottom of the table, it was anybody just get us out of this mess, because we are in an absolute state. Where in terms of the managers, we would go for somebody that has a similar ethos to Ranieri. So Gasperini has been linked to us a lot for the Atalanta manager. He plays similar brand of football. again, I'm not gonna lie, don't watch too much Italian football, so I can't tell you exactly how he plays, whatever.
Emilio will tell you.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and Atalanta again, he seems to be a little bit in a position where they've overachieved for a number of seasons, going to Champions League. They're not the team this year they were last year. So same thing again. Maybe he's outstayed his welcome, and maybe it could be a good fit for you guys. I think sometimes players and managers both need a change of environment. I think you said at the beginning of the show, Neil. I think sometimes you can go to a different club, you can suddenly excel, and show your true worth. I just think Rodgers has been there a bit too long. He's done more than he could have achieved for the club. Time for him to move on. And Gasperini at Atlanta, the same thing as well. I think he's done well for Atlanta, but they're still slightly on the slide at the moment, like Leicester City. So a lot of similarities there.
It's always about that, isn't it? I want to get rid of Rodgers, and then when you say who do you want, it's really hard to go him or him. I don't think anyone actually does. I think sometimes it's just get rid of the manager. I don't care. Sometimes people say no, I want him. I think it needs to be someone better than Brendan Rodgers. That's all I'm saying, Neil. Like if you're not going to be better than Brendan Rodgers, just keep Brendan Rodgers. Do you know what I mean? Until someone becomes available. And I think sometimes that's like the West Ham situation, like Lawless is done with Moyes. When you ask who he wants, he never gives you a name. He doesn't really know. It's like you've got to have a name there that's better than David Moyes.
I would say that our recruitment is good, and they're looking into managers always as well. So if I can trust our recruitment in terms of bringing in other players, like we got rid of Kante and we brought in Wilfred and Didi, that kind of we know what we're doing. So we are looking at managers. So kind of a cop out answer, but I trust the club in what they're doing, which is a privileged position because I've definitely. There are, but without because can't name a specific person, but the club will have 2 or 3 people in mind who is going to the next day there. Get that man away from football. It's just awful. Spelled for Newcastle. Honestly, Mike Ashley and Steve Bruce was awful. Just they've been through absolute rubbish, man.
Yeah,
I agree. I
do feel for them.
You know, Gasperini, Sean Dyche, and obviously Ruben Amorim is the guy from Sporting Lisbon. A lot of people are looking at as a young, good up and coming manager. Listen, I think Brendan I think Brendan would have gone by now. If I'm honest, I think you might be stuck with him to the end of the season, and then you review what's happening there, and go from that. Joe, let's move on to Leeds, man. Because I watched that game thinking, please, man, I've got everything crossed that they could do something against this side. Please, absolutely. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I liked some of your play. I did. I liked some of it. I disliked some of it, but I liked some of it. And I felt that, you gifted them a goal. Let's be clear. You gifted them a goal at the back there, Grealish and Haaland. This guy, I don't know what to call him anymore. I don't know if I can call him Haaland or just inhuman. I mean, the guy just is absolute mad. Like, if you're looking for the perfect all-round striker, pretty much got him, really. I mean, the guy's just a killer, absolute killer. The guy scored 20 goals and Chelsea have scored 19. This season is absolutely mad. It's absolutely crazy how good this guy is. Quickest ever to get to 20 Premier League goals. So fair play and credit where credit's due. Big up Haaland. But I felt Leeds could have got a couple more, Gilhart had a chance. That Wilfred Gnonto, is it? He looks quality.
Gnonto.
There was some good bits of play, Joe. I don't know. What was your thoughts, bro?
I thought we were whack.
Trying to pick you up, Joe. Come on.
I know, man. Listen.
Profound,
this would be a good time to leave the stream. That's the end on a high.
Can I have subtitles? Dan, can I have subtitles on Joe, please? I didn't quite catch that.
I'm grateful for you picking us up, mate. But no, I think I really don't enjoy the football that we play. I sort of expected us to be under the cosh, of course I did. And look, last season under Bielsa, we got beat 7, Jesse 4. So I suppose we're improving. We only conceded 3. But let's be honest, if Melier don't have a good first half, Jack Grealish could finish his dinner. They could have been 4 or 5 up, if we're being totally honest. I suppose the frustrating thing is we didn't really get going until we got behind. But again, what's that down to? Jesse put it down to, a little bit of nervousness because whenever we did win the ball, we couldn't pass it 5 yards. The really worrying thing for me is it's just the state of the squad, like Tyler Adams is out and he's a huge loss. And then we're playing Adam Forshaw. I will say for Adam Forshaw, he had a good game. But what I'm saying, just overall, the squad isn't there. I don't rate the manager. I think he could be gone soon. The reason I say that is because I don't see where points are coming for Leeds United currently. We've got Newcastle on Saturday at St James's. That for me is the toughest place to go in English football right now in terms of, it's just rocking there right now, isn't it? So I don't think we get anything there. And then there's, I asked the question on social media, where are the next points coming from? And then people are going, West Ham. West Ham, yes, they've had a poor start to the season, and then people just look at the table and assume they're big up to you, Jamie. They look at the table and just assume that West Ham are terrible now. They're not. I think David Moyes and West Ham have the tools to be able to do a job on Leeds United. So I'm like, right, where are they? Then we've got to go away to Villa. Then we've got Brentford at home, and I think I think it could be curtains for him. And to be honest, if he talks a good game, but I'm sort of done with it, man. I'm not enjoying watching the football at the minute. I don't enjoy the folks that are running the club. I think we all go through this in stages, right? As football fans, that's where I'm at. I'm still, I sat there today, right? I took the kids out to Fun Shack, and they were playing, right?
Is that what they're calling Ellen Road nowadays?
I'm sat there on my own while they're running about, and I'm sat there just thinking, we finished ninth. We finished ninth on the Bielsa and didn't back him. Why didn't we fucking back him? Instead, we kept the same personnel. We had to sack him, and now we've got Jesse in, and it's woeful. And this is what I mean. It's like affected my mood all day. All day has affected my mood, and this is what it does, right? And then I'm like, well, there's a bit of respite, and then I think, no, we're going to St James's Park. We're going to get pumped. So, I'm not feeling good, Dan, is my response to your question.
Mate, I got that straight away when you said I thought we were wet.
The Fun Shack. Yeah, baby.
But what I will say, William Yonto is a top little player. I mean, Emilio, obviously he's had a few games at international level as well. So he's a good cracking little player. So I think we'll see more from him in the future. Just might be in the Championship.
Listen, I agree with that. I thought he was causing some problems, and if you're causing Man City problems, you're a good player. Put it that way. Listen, I've never had Leeds as going down this season. I never have. I just think you've got enough quality within your side to stay up, whoever the manager is. But I would probably go with Jesse March as the next manager to get sacked. If I had to put money on it, like today, I probably would go with him because I just don't feel like he's won the fans over yet. I speak to a few Leeds fans. None of them say he's the guy. I love him. I want this guy for but I think when you get rid of Bielsa, like I'm with you. Like, why did you do that? Really? I know that you were losing some games, and to be fair, when you lost against those teams, you sometimes got smashed, like 3 or 4 or 5. But actually, like the whole team. I went to the Leeds Arsenal game last season, pretty much a year ago today, and we battered you. You had your kids out, by the way.
Yeah.
But all of the Ellen Road was singing his name. They were singing Bielsa. You're 5-1 down. They were singing his name. And I thought, you've got to keep that. You can't get rid of that. Like, you cannot get rid of that. Once you lose the fans, you got to go, really. When you've got the fans on side, you're always going to be, 1, given time, and 2, deservedly so, because they'll forgive all those kind of things. And you're right, 9th place, and you didn't say, right, let's push, let's go again, kind of keeping it the same when everybody else then gets stronger. And then you worry why you go down, then you wonder why you're going down. It's like, it's a tough one, man. It really is.
We always had a go. Like, this is... there is genuinely a split between the fan base, because as soon as you mention anything about Jesse, it's like you've got an agenda because you love Bielsa too much, etc., etc. And maybe there is an element of truth to that or whatever, but you can only compare to what came before, right? You can only compare to the most recent manager. And for me, I've gone from swashbuckling, having a go in every game and sometimes getting results. We went to the Etihad and beat them 2-1 with 10 men. Now... Did we ever look like laying a glove? I think Man City recorded the highest XG in any single game this Premier League season against us. And we're more defensive. So that's even worse for me. It's like we're playing more defensive, yet we're conceding more XG. Yeah, we got slapped 7-0. But there were times where we would have a go, and it was an entertaining game to watch. And sometimes you have to sit back and say, all right, City peeled us open. But when you put in 11 men behind the ball, and when you eventually do win the ball back, you can't pass the ball 5 yards out. There's no out ball because you're all camped in your own half. It's like, what's the point? You know what I mean? That's where I'm at. Like, what is the point in this? Do you know what I mean?
But saying that as well, Joe, this is what you get from watching a team week in, week out. There's always a simple narrative when you watch Match of the Day, or when there's so many points they missed out. You're like, why did they miss out on that? Why there was something here they missed out, or there's subtle tactics that you pick up by watching 90 minutes, where you can summarize it by going, you should be grateful because of X and X and Y, and you're going, because that's what you've seen from watching the highlights. If you watch us game in, game out, if you watch for a little bit of time, you will see the trends through the matches rather than just taking this match and go, this match was bad, sure, but if it's a one-off, I think every fan go, fair enough, whatever, we'll move on to the next one. But if you're seeing it, the same problems occur again and again and again, the only way for me is when you speak to opposition fans and go, look, I watch the game every week. This is the problem. This is the problem. They'll tell you before what happens. Sometimes I'll tell you the subs, what subs will happen at what minute of what game, 100%. And it just comes through.
Same, exactly. Mateus Click comes on. It's all the time. I get it. Yeah.
I think it's a great point, that, Neil, that what we see in highlights packages isn't always truly and thoroughly representative of what we watch. I mean, I've been to every single Forest game this year, and I come back and I watch highlights, summaries and pre-season, all that, and I kind of think, well, you sort of got the theme, but you're missing these nuances around it. Do you know what I mean? So, and I think for Joe, I'm with Dan. I don't think Leeds will go down. I think Leeds. They remind me of like a swarm of wasps. They might not be the most talented, but every now and then they can really generate some energy. You know, that little run they went on, for me, the night at Liverpool should be their touchstone. They went to Liverpool, and I wanted them to get beat at Liverpool to drag them nearer to us. After 10 minutes of that game, I was like, no, I'd change completely. Go on, Leeds, smash them, because they're complacent and arrogant. And I really loved what Leeds did that night. So I'm with Dan. I think Leeds will stay up.
The counter-pressing style, or the style of Jesse, if you like works against the top sides, because they're going to come and impose their game on us, right? And therefore we can try and catch them on the fly, right? When they try to play out. When we're playing the rest of the teams, I just don't like Jesse, man. Just fuck off.
Joe, can I ask you a question? Do you think that there's a little bit of a dismissive attitude and a slight snobbery about somebody being American and like kind of looking down on the MLS and all this kind of thing? It's almost like, and I'm probably just shooting into the wind and talking nonsense, but it's almost like, oh, he's an American, he can't cut it in this country. It's almost like, I don't know. I think Jesse Marsh is an incredibly articulate and eloquent guy.
But it's almost like things, Dave.
Yeah.
Again, it comes back to like what Neil says. I can tell you what he's going to say in every single interview. It's aggression. We need to have aggression. We need to be tactically, what is it? When you're on forget the clarity. We need clarity.
Yeah.
We need clarity. We need aggression. And I'm like, I've heard it all now.
Stage now. It's like stage.
Yeah. We've all been there with all our managers. Yeah, we can say what he's going to say. Yeah, it was tick that. Like bingo. You just go off and just tick and go down.
Man,
nothing to do. Like genuinely, it's nothing to do with him being American. I mean, we had to deal with the same tribe under Bielsa when it was. Oh, he hadn't even learned the language. It's so lazy. He could speak English. He chose not to because he didn't want to do all the interviews. Do you know what I mean? That's facts.
I thought that was Joe. I thought that was really, really cool. To me, that was a raised middle finger to the British media.
Well, that's what I mean.
People would say, why does he speak English? But I'm kind of thinking, no, because he doesn't need to speak English. He's got spies everywhere who tell him what's going on. You know what I mean?
No, I don't know. So it's nothing to do with him being American. I mean, obviously there is. I mean, so we went from a manager that barely spoke to one like that.
He won't shut up.
Yeah, basically.
Playing into the stereotype.
Yeah. We were told we were going to get a seamless transition, and you couldn't get any different. If you
Chalk and cheese. Yeah, it is. It really is, man. It really is.
It's like,
who would you like though, Joe? Like, if he does go, who would you like? What do you reckon Leeds need to take you forward? Do you need experience? Do you need someone young and up and coming? Do you need a project? Do you need a win now?
I would prefer someone young and up and coming. Who that is, I'm not too sure, bro. I can't. I mean, I can't sit on here, can I, and say I'm not enjoying the football and then say get Sean Dyche in, because it's just
yeah.
You know what I mean? I can't do that. But we need to stay in the division first of all. I think the main thing for me, it's bigger than Jesse. I can't lie. I don't rate. Like, I'm really grateful for the owner coming in and getting us to where we've got to. But he said himself, he's done interviews this week. He's already got a deal with the 49ers to sell by January 2024. They have like 49%. He has 51 maths. But basically, neither party will invest transfers. So we're in this sticking position, because it's like, if Rads invests, well, I'm selling in the summer, so why am I going to invest? And 49ers don't want to invest because it might mean that their price that they have to buy him out for might be bigger because he's gone further up the table. Do you see what I'm saying? So we're on inside like a state of flux. So for me, it's like, get to the summer, 49ers take us over, then we go again. Do you know what I mean? And then we can see investment in the squad, because for the last 3 January windows, we've spent a combined total of £1 million in the last 3 January windows.
Wow.
Yeah. In the summer, we had 0 net spend. Like, we sold Rafinha, we sold Calvin, we brought in the exact same amount of players money-wise. We had to basically sell or loan out Dan James in order to bring in Bamba Dieng. Bamba Dieng didn't even come in because he didn't end up getting on the plane in the end. So we ended up getting Willian Yonto. We weren't supposed to get Yonto till next summer, but we had to bring it forward because we were down a player. Because we're like, well, we've let James go now, so what are we going to do? Or just bring Willie in earlier. And thankfully, Willie's done well. But we're all over the shop. I mean, we tried. This is the frustrating thing. We sent Victor Orta to go sign Gakpo in the summer. Like, he was there. Yeah, he was there, bro. It fell through. You know, this is the sort of clownage we're dealing with, right? They put together this package. They put together this package for Cody Gakpo, and the PSV sporting director afterwards said, we didn't think they were serious because there was £13 million worth of add-ons, of which 8 million were if they got in the Champions League. Like, Leeds United in the Champions League, like, what? So obviously they've gone, well, we're never getting that 8 million. We're never getting that. We're not going to get there. Do you see what I'm saying? So, and then you see he's gone to Liverpool for 37. Maybe we could have probably done that. 37, is it really that much? I don't think so. So it's frustrating, bro. And now we're being linked to Maximiliano Vorbeer at RB Salzburg. But again, this is Jesse Marsh has come in.
This is Jesse Marsh's old team.
Exactly, bro. So he's brought in Brendan Aronson, Rasmus Christensen, and now we're going for Vorbeer. Brought in Tyler Adams, who I think's been great, but it's American. I don't know, because my worry is these players are brought in to fit Jesse's mould and style. I don't think he's going to last, personally. We're then stuck with players that are stuck on his mould and style.
Yeah. And that's the problem you've got, because a lot of people say that, don't they? Oh, if you're swapping managers, you're starting again with the old regime's players. It is difficult changing managers, but I do think it's the name. It's the name at the moment of the game. It's modern day football. You don't get long. Results business. It's so important you stay in that Premier League. And if you start flirting with relegation, the fans are going to start saying, "I want him gone. I want him gone." And like, nobody on here that ever said, I want him gone because I'd like us to go and appoint so-and-so. They just go, I want him gone. And you go, well, who do you want? I don't care. I just want him gone. It's very, very difficult. You know, it really is. And, you know, I don't know if managers like Mancini and Rafa Benitez would be wanted for one, or would ever come to Leeds. But surely that's the experience type that you'd want out of somebody like that. Say, look, it ain't going down. There you go. So, you know, I don't know. Like, some people would say they'd never go. But then, you know, listen, Rafa Benitez went to Everton. He's probably going to go to Leeds. Do you know what I mean? So somebody like that, I think, would be a good for experience and actually give a style. Some people don't like Rafa's style. I actually didn't mind him as a manager. Thought he was quite underrated, if I'm honest. But listen, with Leeds, I think at the moment, I still don't think you go down. But I don't. If I had to put money, he'd be the one that I'd go with, man. I think he's going to go next. So let's see what happens. It's a results business.
You know, because a lot of managers have gone recently, but you don't think Lampard?
Absolutely, Neil. Lampard, to me, is just basically walking around with an enormous target on his back. And he's got that look about him that he knows it's going to happen. Watch Frank's body language after the game against Wolves. That's sort of slumped. I know it's coming. You know, and he was...
Listen, I said Gerrard and Lampard will both go, and I stand by it. Gerrard's already gone. Lampard, for me, is he ain't going to lie. He's just not a good manager. I'm sorry. He's not a good manager at all.
Great
and I
player.
look at him and...
Not
but
great
the thing,
player,
both of them were unbelievable. But Neil, you say Lampard as well. Do you know the reason why I don't think he'll go next? Is because every Everton fan I speak to, they're like, "Oh no, I quite like Lampard. It's not Lampard. It's more than Lampard. It's at the top. It's this and that." And I think keep him then. If you really like him that much, keep him and see what happens. Because
I think what they're done. I think what they're doing though, they're trying to equate what he was like when he played the game.
I agree.
To me, Frank Lampard is like the classic example for me, being an older guy than you lads. I remember Brian Robson. Brian Robson was more articulate with his arms, his legs, his backside, and a tackle on his head than he ever was with his mouth. When he started managing Middlesbrough and whatever, he just couldn't talk and get his point across. He was, without being awful to Brian, who I absolutely adored as a player, he lacked the fire in his speech and his conversation. He wasn't inspiring. And I think Frank, who, let's be honest, is an incredibly intelligent guy, academically, just doesn't have that personality to get his ideas across. And I think Stevie G might have been the same. So I think when they say we don't want Lampard to go, and I might be misinterpreting Everton fans' views of what's going on. It's almost like he'll be a good manager because he was a great player. And I'm like, well, that doesn't necessarily work. Steve Cooper, if I'm going to look at us, Steve Cooper barely got a game for Wrexham. Jose Mourinho basically was an interpreter. You know, these guys who've gone on to be, I mean, Steve's done what he's done in our little pond, Mourinho bigger, you know, Arsene Wenger wasn't a great player. Jurgen Klopp wasn't a great player. You know, great players who become great managers, generally.
I agree with that. There ain't many.
They're rarities, Dan.
Pep Guardiola, Zidane, you know, you can say they were great managers, great players, but the list starts to shorten a little bit after that, doesn't it? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
It's a hell of a lot easier to do it when your starting point is at a huge club as well. Whereas people like Cooper and that, they have to work their way up. They have to do the hard yards.
True,
you know
Joe.
what I mean? Not giving jobs straight away. I think I remember seeing a Norwich fan at the end of last season gushing over Lampard. Oh, we're linked to Lampard. He'll say, where? Like, he's gash. I think he's terrible, mate.
So do I.
So bad.
I think he's terrible, man. And people look at Derby job and say, "Oh, he did a good
job."
Oh,
absolutely, Dan. Yeah.
Come on, seriously, come on. Like they should have gone up that year, and he basically made sure they didn't. You know, it's embarrassing. But anyway, listen, Dave, let's finish with you for the last few minutes. I would like to read out. I'd like to read this out. It says, Steve Cooper insists Nottingham Forest will not be ashamed to make more signings in January, despite spending 160 million on 23 players last summer. Mate, it's looking like you're going to get more players, Dave. Do you not think you should stick with the ones you got and try and get them to play first? Or are you quite happy for me to spend?
It's just gone bonkers, hasn't it? We're Nottingham Forest. We were playing Huddersfield exactly a year ago to the day and losing 1-0, right? We were getting beaten by Middlesbrough on Boxing Day last year. I mean, to be honest, what I would say is we're just coming to the end of 2022. You know, before we move on to talk about anything, 2022 is the greatest year in Nottingham Forest history for at least 23 years. Let's get that out of the way. So that's a perspective. The thing is with the situation, obviously at the start of the season, we were the joke about how many we'd signed. But as Neil has mentioned about narratives being misplaced or misappropriated, our narrative was that was absolute necessity. The 5 loans went, people were at ends of contracts, and the vast majority of Nottingham Forest squad was simply not fit for purpose in the Premier League. I looked at the team at Wembley that sneaked past Huddersfield. We deserved to go up, I think, over the body of work, but we sneaked past Huddersfield, and I looked at that, and you know, the elation once the elation had gone away and the hard realities kick in, you kind of think, not sure about this lot and how many of this lot are ready for the Premier League. So we did have to go and buy. I think what happened was that there was a little bit of a conflict in that there were players that Steve wanted, and I think there were certain players owners who couldn't believe their luck. Hey, we're in the Premier League. Let's go and buy some sweets, right? But who Steve was like, yeah, all right then. Yeah, I'll put up with these. So, unfortunately, what would say about Forest is from the Leicester game, while the Leicester Nottingham Forest game was cathartic for Leicester City, it was also in a different sense cathartic for Nottingham Forest, because it put a line in the sand that, right, we are never going to be that easy to beat again. And if you take out Arsenal, who literally were way too good for us, up till the break, Forest actually started to stop being a joke about numbers of players and little club and all that, and actually became quite respectable. A 0-0 draw at Brighton, beating Liverpool, a 2-2 draw against Brentford when we should have won, outplaying Tottenham beautifully in the League Cup. And we do want to cut. We want 2 cup runs, right? You know, we're really looking forward to our quarter-final against Wolves in the Carabao and a trip to Blackpool, if only for the fresh sea air, right? So, and then we beat Palace, and as Emilio has quite rightly said, Dee seems to have gone to Castaway with Tom Hanks. We haven't seen him for years. And then we get back, we beat Blackburn as if like we beat Blackburn hollow, you know. So what I said after the Blackburn game, it might have been on here with or another thing, I don't know, I can't remember. I lose track of it at my age. Is that when we went to Blackburn, and actually in those games preceding the World Cup, this idea of 22 strangers or 23 strangers or whatever, that had ceased to be an issue, because I think Steve has actually brought them socially together. And I think that has come together. The issue now is we've started to pick up some injuries. So if you like, Jesse went off against Manchester United. Don't know how bad that is. And Jesse actually has begun to, my phrase was, he's begun to tick along. Jesse started to kind of feel at home and started to play better. Morgan Gibbs-White, who up to the World Cup break was doing the same. He looks like he's going to be out for a month now. We lost Moussa Niakate, who we signed from Union Berlin, who looked really, really good in our win against West Ham, first home game of the season, and basically had to remove Mikel Antonio from his undercarriage. He looked good, but he's out for a long time. So we picked up these slightly niggling injuries, which are going to require replacements to come in. It won't be 22 again or 23, let's be honest. But I think the idea is, when we talked in our July, August, and September, and all that kind of stuff, the Q word was quantity. Now, as this window sort of hoves into view, it's about quality. So yeah, I think the idea, the Forest, the ideal for Forest would be, I don't know, 2, 3, or maybe 4 of sufficient quality to add depth and especially experience. I think we desperately need a centre forward. I'd like to go and get Glenn Murray from 10 years ago when he was either at Palace or Brighton, because Glenn, to me, is one of the most underrated players. You know, we got Glenn, but unfortunately, Glenn, great guy that he is, was at the end of his career, right? But I'd love to go and get somebody like, he scored goals, he led the line, and he brought others into play. So somebody like that.
I want him to bring him out of retirement just so you can sign him and be happy.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, Glenn's been at the City Ground a few games this year, and he's really popular, even though nobody ever actually was in the stadium to see him play for Forest, because he only played in that COVID hit season. But that's what we need. So I think, Dan, to answer your question, there will be more. And it sounds a bit like, oh God, I'm here again talking about signings, but it's going to have to be done. I mean, basically, if you'd asked me after Blackburn last week, I'd have said, no, I think we're all right. Brennan Johnson was brilliant against Blackburn. But the thing is, Old Trafford on Tuesday night made me kind of think, at Old Trafford on Tuesday night, all I could think about during the game was Norwich City. We had a look of Norwich City about us where we want to go into that sort of league. It's a bit like, is it platform 9 3/4 in Harry Potter, where there's something there but you can't see it, and that's the league that Norwich City are in. Not good enough for this, too good for that. And I looked at Forest, compared again. We blew Blackburn away last week. They're third in the Championship, right? And they're not a bad side. We blew them away, but then we got blown away by Manchester. I mean, Casemiro was absolute top draw the other night. I mean, basically, he sat in an armchair with a cigar and a newspaper, and he was still too good for Forest. Right,
Yeah,
Casemiro was
unreal,
wonderful.
wasn't he?
I mean, the man who came back from the dead was too good for us. Eriksen, Marcus was brilliant. I thought, I did think we would get beat. Somebody said to me before, Dawes said to me before, and what do you think? I said, United will walk this. He said, why do you say that? And I said, because they've got rid of their biggest hindrance on the field, which is the ego of Narcissus. He's now gone. So Bruno Fernandes, if nothing else, is going to be, I can breathe at last, right? And then
Did Dor think you'd win? Did Dor think you'd win?
I think there were a lot of that. Basically, what you get with a lot of Forest fans, they're lovely people. Bless them. They are lovely people. God, he's like my boss. He's like my boss checking up on me at work, right? Do you know what he does sometimes, Dan? He gives me coaching. Now, when you go on Potsy's show, be sure to say the right things, Dave. You know what I mean? So, but I thought we would get beat. The other thing I thought is that the Glazers have made it plain that they're selling the club. So on the field, Manchester United were kind of like happy. Off the field, Manchester United were happy, and I thought Forest were walking into a real ambush. And the first 20 minutes, Forest looked overawed. They looked like they kind of regressed the championship. They lost 3-0, but I don't think we've had a 6-0 at Manchester City, obliterated. We had a 5-0 at Arsenal, obliterated. The worst beating we've had was at the King Power, 4-0, where Leicester we were annihilated, right? The 3-0 at Manchester United was nowhere near as bad as those three. If the goal that Yatesy had ruled out, if Willy Bolly had actually had certain parts of his anatomy about half an inch backwards, and Yatesy scores, then, Forest did create some chances, and United weren't utterly secure. Once the third goal goes in, that's it. But I just worried that this, just a spectre of Norwich City about Forest. I don't know if it was because they were in yellow shirts or whatever. But so if that is a thing for Steve and Tatey and Andy Reid and the folks behind the scene, then there will have to be more signings. And I think Steve, I haven't seen Steve's pre-Chelsea presser, but I think he might have alluded to that. So I think, to answer your question, Dan, yeah, we're going to be here again with Nottingham Forest. And, there'll be all those jokes about quadruple decker buses bringing the squad into the City ground and all this kind of nonsense, you know what I mean? And Emilio's smiling down there because he's going, yeah, we did that 3 or 4 seasons ago. Yeah. It was like, Forest are doing a Fulham, and now Fulham are sitting back there. Well, we've kept our side and we're all right, So, yeah. It's going to happen again, I think.
Yeah. Do you know what, as well? You could see in the summer, like you mentioned it, that disconnect between Cooper signings and the owners' signings. Because you started seeing what's his face coming in, who was at Spurs, and then I seen you were close to bringing in Batshuayi, who was still at Chelsea.
That was on.
I was like, mental. This has gone totally too far here. Do
you know what, Joe? I'm gonna name drop now. I was stood outside the City ground waiting for the Villa game, which was directly after Leicester. And obviously, Steve, because of the noise that we made in the corner of the King Power, when Steve and the players were a bit sheepish in front of us, he got the job. He signed his contract, and I was stood outside the City ground having a tuna cob. And Henry Winter, who's the chief football correspondent for the Times, was walking down past the club shop. And I went over to him and I said, look, Henry, thank you so much for the kind tweet you put about the Forest fans at Leicester. He said, well, you were magnificent. You sang even though your team were being obliterated by Leicester in a local derby. That meant a lot. And he goes, how do you feel about Steve Cooper? I said, well, the fans have spoken and the Marinakis family have actually listened, which is nice, And then he goes, do you think that? I said, well, I seem to think that there was a meddling element at Nottingham Forest that Steve wasn't happy about, somebody cramping his style. And Henry Winter said, do you believe that to be the money, what the owner's son? And I just went, you might say that, Henry, but I couldn't possibly comment. But I actually think what it was, it's almost like the Marinakis family, if they did, the Leicester City ownership, let's go look at the Leicester City ownership. Not only have the Leicester City ownership invested in the city of Leicester itself from a civic sense, but Leicester City have said, right, we're not going to tell you how to pick your team, or we're not going to tell you who you're going to bring in. They leave it to a recruitment team, and they got on with it, and they won the league, right? I think what happened was with the Marinakis family, and maybe, certain people in the Managerial say, oh, great, I've got a Premier League team to play with now. Oh, he looks quite good. His highlight package on YouTube was belting. Oh, he scored 1 goal in 40 games. It was a good goal, and all this nonsense. And unfortunately, and I'm going to be a real snob here now, that's what you get when people who have never played the game try to assume that they know what it's about. And I'm saying...
Just playing Monopoly.
Yeah,
absolutely, Neil. Absolutely. So it got to the point where it got to be a little bit ludicrous, So I think as Joe is absolutely right. There was this there were Cooper signings. It's a bit the same happened at Tottenham. There were club signings and there were Conte signings. The classic one, obviously, that meant for us was Jed Spence. We would have liked to have had back because he was magnificent for us last year. Jed goes to Tottenham. Hey, Antonio Conte, what do you think? Well, I never really wanted him, but I suppose I'll have to put up with it. And you know what?
You brought in like Toffolo and Nico Williams, I think, were decent signings, and then
they are
Serge Aurier and Lodi coming in
excellent.
the floor, and I'm like, what? So now you've got
4 right backs and 4 left backs, wasn't there?
Mad.
Well, what we did, we got Omar Richards from Bayern Munich, and that looked a really good signing. But then Omar Richards had a broken leg. He came in and he found out he got a broken leg, which is a little bit poor, really, if people are doing medicals. And then we signed Harry Toff.
A&E would have told you that.
Yeah, I know, mate. I got a metal.
We signed, I
think they must have run a metal detector up his leg.
With a broken back. Remember that? When he signed it was unbelievable. I remember, Kallstrom, he's about 39 and he's got a broken back. Well, great. Arsene Wenger should have gone that year, really, shouldn't he, to be fair?
Anyway. I mean, you've got a lot of... he might have a broken back. There's a lot of Forest fans who had broken hearts most of the last 20 or 30 odd years. But what I would say is that... So he came in. Toffolo, I think, had earned a chance at the Premier League, but then had to grow and prove himself again. Nico's a good sign. Serge Aurier, actually, was the last in the building and the least heralded. And you know what? He is really popular and has done well. He's been a pleasant surprise. There are some... Emmanuel Dennis is looking disappointing. There's certain others one you kind of think
strange that one because he did well at Watford. I thought that was a good signing, but
I was stood next to a bloke at Old Trafford the other night who basically shouted, "He's the worst player ever to wear that shirt," because he just wants to try and beat everybody himself, and that's not what's required in the Premier League. A modicum of thought and team spirit, and a sort of a global awareness of your team and what's going on. So unfortunately, when he's, every transfer, every signing is a gamble. 22 signings is kind of a super gamble. It's a kind of cluster bomb, but it might be a cluster F
as well. Yeah,
we have.
I do think that many people you got to gel as well. It's difficult, Dave.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
So the confidence I had, Dan, when we talked after Blackburn, has kind of eroded a little bit. Now I thought that we would lose at United, and I was proved right.
You talking about beat Chelsea?
Well, this is it, Joe. I was on your show, Joe. Do beg your pardon, mate. Tune into Joey's show. It's brilliant, by the way. I'm not always on. So the Chelsea game, I said to Joe that we would lose to United. I was right. And then I said, I think we'll beat Chelsea. I'm not so sure now. And what then happens is
Bournemouth, but
and then what happens then
it's one goal, isn't it? One goal away all season as well. I worry for you, mate. I think you might go, and that's coming from me, and I think we might as well. But I think you and Southampton are the two, I think, and then there's one more up for.
I think at the moment the two worst teams in the division meet at St Mary's next Wednesday night.
Yeah,
right, to determine who is the worst.
Huge.
Yeah, it's a cup final, that is. So and then our next league game is Leicester at home on the 14th before we go to Bournemouth. So if you like, and you chuck in the quarterfinal of the Carabao and you chuck in Blackpool away in the FA Cup, if you like, these next 5 games, now you actually stop and think about it, are really definitive. It's a definitive little period for Nottingham Forest here. And if we come out of that and we've been done by Chelsea, beaten at St Mary's, done at home by Leicester, who will want revenge for the 4-1 in the cup last year, then we are then seriously looking at being in that limbo league that Norwich City are in. So I'm never overly confident. What you won't ever get me coming on here is I love Forest, therefore they're going to win everything, like a lot of these supporters do. I want to come on here. I enjoy coming on the non-Forest ones because I can come on here, I can be fair, I can be objective about my own club and say, if I can, nice things about other clubs. but I'm not losing sight of where we are and where we've come from is incredible. If we stay where we are, I mean, I'm buying a season ticket next season, whatever league we're in, right? I don't care. I'm for it till I die. People say it, and then there's someone saying, well, I don't know if I'm going to support them. What, you only support them when they're winning? That's nonsense, right? But the truth of the matter is, we might have to do what Fulham did, to go up, to come down, to go up, to come down, to then actually find our level. I do at the moment think that we're too good for the Championship, based on what I saw at Blackburn, but at the moment, not good enough for this division. So that is what we need. Dan, Joe, I've said it to you lads, if we're 17th like that at Palace on the 28th and we've survived, that'll do me.
Yeah, fair play to you, man.
Exactly,
I think fair one. Listen, we're going to wrap up, but before we do that, just want to go around quickly and just give me one name of who you think is definitely getting relegated. I'm not going to expect you to get the 3 right, but who do you think the one team is that you think is 100% going down? Because for me, it could be a few. Joe, we'll start with you, bro. Start with you, Joe.
It might seem a cop-out to the bottom now, but I think Southampton. I think Nathan Jones, he left Luton previously, didn't do well at Stoke. He's done it again and gone to Southampton, and I'm not sure they have the personnel or he has the acumen to be able to keep him in the division. So I think Southampton for me.
Listen, I'm going to agree with Joe. They're the ones that I would put money on now. I don't see them scoring goals. I don't think the manager's good enough. They've got a very young side that looks inexperienced in massive parts of their chunks of their pitch. So I would go with Joe. Dave?
Everton. I think Everton have been hanging around the bottom of the league like a bad smell for a long, long time. And they're in decline. And they've got an ownership that doesn't seem to know what it's doing. I think Everton, I've got this premonition about Everton kicking off their first game in that brand new stadium down by the docks, and they're playing somebody like Sunderland at home in the Championship. And I think Everton at the moment are a bit of a shit show off the field. I get the impression they get Calvert-Lewin fit and Dominic does what Dominic does, then they may stay up. But I agree with Joe that Southampton are incredibly vulnerable, but I've just got this big feeling about Everton.
I tipped them at the start. I said Everton to go down. Mind you, I did put Fulham and Bournemouth down with them. But Everton, I did think, Fulham are the surprise package for me, and I've been honest with that about Emilio. But Everton are the ones I said from the start. Don't rate Lampard and think I think they've got it all wrong. Neil, who are you going with?
So Southampton would be one, Nottingham Forest would be another one, and I think Everton would be the final 3.
Wow.
I think that will be the 3 that will go down. It is tight. I think Bournemouth have got enough to survive. Leeds, West Ham, Everton, Crystal Palace will be okay. I think we'll be fine. Aston Villa will pick it up with. So we're all in that kind of ballpark, but I think them 3 will be.
Fair play. Emilio, what are you going with?
Southampton. I know we play them on Saturday, so but it just seems.
Who's in favour, Emilio?
It seems odd letting Houston out to go and then bringing Nathan Jones. Just seems a very, very strange decision. He's a little ignorant. I just don't like Nathan Jones. He's wriggly, he's slimy, he's got no charisma, no nothing. I know he came to Fulham in the last game of last season. He was giving it all the big one, and we thumped them 7-0 on the last game of the season. Hopefully, we'll do the same against Southampton on Saturday, but we'll see. But I think Southampton don't think I've got enough experience there, and
Am I right in thinking that Nathan Jones is the first rodent to manage a team in the Premier League?
I just don't like the guy. I just don't like him at all.
I tell you what, if you go a mile up the road from where I live into Stoke-on-Trent, go into the middle of Stoke-on-Trent, stand on the town hall steps and shout the name Nathan Jones, just see how long it takes. All right.
Yeah, I don't see him being the right person.
No, I don't think so. No. I think Bournemouth are still going. I think Bournemouth are going to keep dropping. To be honest with you, I think they've had a good start. I see it. I see them probably getting sucked in. They're drawn back in again.
If they got enough to stay up, that's the question, isn't it?
I'm not sure they have. To be honest with you, I'm not sure they have. I just
took in. Palace have not had a shot on goal in the last 2 games, and if you nullify Wilf, Elise, and Eze, there isn't a lot there.
There isn't.
I watched Fulham were terrific. Right, and Fulham made the most, but Palace have got a look. And what if Ivan Toney is banned from Brentford for this betting stuff? That could drag them in. So
massive, isn't it? It's massive, so
yeah.
tight, top
But to
and
get
bottom.
relegated, they could be dragged into relegation battle, but it wouldn't be that they're going to get relegated. And I think that was the question.
Yeah. Well, West Ham as well. Donna just mentioned it about West Ham going down again. We keep forgetting.
Love that. So absolutely love
that. Look, it's a lot of football still to play. A lot of 6-pointers.
Yeah,
I think, Joe, to your point, you've got to find a way of beating teams around you.
Yes.
Yeah. We Fulham 2 years ago. We were beating Liverpool away. We nearly got to win Arsenal away. We beat Leicester away. We won the big games, but we couldn't get nothing out of the teams around us. That's why we went down. If you can find a way of beating teams around you, you'll be safe. It's those teams who can't beat the teams around them are the ones who are going to get sucked in.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Guys, there's a lot of football left to play. I want to thank you all for joining me and all of you guys for watching. Thank you all so much. We won't see you now, so make sure you have a fantastic new year. Big up everybody. Make sure you go and follow all of these guys on their socials. Neil, thank you so much for jumping on in place of Ash tonight. Absolute pleasure. As always, a pleasure, Dave. Pleasure, Emilio. And a pleasure, Joe.
Thank you.
We will see you next time. Guys. Take it easy, people.
All the best.